Good morning, little crafters. How are all of you today? Elizabeth here again with a crafter's lesson for you today. So this is the NATO phonetic alphabet. It does not have an AQA code quite yet. AQA is still approving this one. So as soon as it has a code, we will let you know. It has 4 outcomes for you to meet today. Things that you're going to need to use later is you're going to want the NATO phonetic alphabet printed out. So print it out or have it on a phone or tablet or something so that you can refer back to it. You're going to need a little bit of knowledge of the armed forces and why they might use it. For today's lesson, go get a writing instrument. So whether that's a pen, pencil, something like that, I'm going to want you to write down some letters for me as I read a code out to you. Okay, so run, quickly go get that and bring it back, or pause the video if you're watching. Okay, are you ready? Let me make this bigger. And today what we're going to learn about is the NATO phonetic alphabet, how it's used, why it's used, and we're going to practice a little bit with it. So we'll have a little play with it. Do you have your writing instruments? We'll need it towards the end, so you have some time. Go yell at your parents to go find it for you if you haven't found one. They can bring it to you while you listen to the lesson, can't they? Wake up your brain. What is the NATO phonetic alphabet? What's NATO? And what does phonetic mean? Okay, so we probably know what an alphabet is, a group of letters, but what about the NATO and the phonetic part? What do you already know? What can you tell me? Let me know in the comments or be shouting at the screen. Whisper it if you don't really want me to hear because you're unsure. And I will show you in the next slide. Okay, so NATO is just a group. It's a military and political alliance. So alliance just means a group of people consisting of members from North America and Europe. It's to guarantee freedom and security of its members through political and military means. Okay, it often involves joint operations and exercises. So clear communication is very, very important, especially in terms of between personnel from different countries who might have different accents like me or pronunciations. So I'm from America and you guys are from England, most of you. And as an American, I have a different accent. So some of the letters I might say might sound different to someone else. So NATO is about taking people from all sorts of places and being able to join them together so they can understand. It's an alliance. Phonetic just means to use distinct, easily understood words to represent letters. So this helps in similar sounding letters. So B and P can often sound very similar, especially if they're muffled. M and N can sound very, very similar. So they had to come up with a way to use phonics to help. And technically, this is a spelling alphabet. It's not really an alphabet with just letters. It spells things. But it's been called a phonetic alphabet for so long, it's just become common usage. So that's where the word comes from. This is what it actually is. So each letter has a code word. A is alpha, B is Bravo, C is Charlie, D is Delta, and each one of those, you're going to use the code word instead of the letter. Because like I said earlier, if I mumble or if I say 2 letters that sound very similar like B and P, you might not know what I'm saying. But if I say Bravo and Papa, you'll be able to understand the difference between those 2 words. And if I say Bravo, you would write the B. And if I say Papa, you would write a P. That's how this works. Okay, so your goal is to try and learn some of these. I have these memorized only because I was a military brat. I grew up on armed force bases all my life. I have never, the first time I've ever been away from armed forces was when I moved here. So I grew up with this and all of my family used it. So I'm quite familiar with these letters. So how do you use that? Let's look at it. What are these 2 words that I've spelled? So if I tell you Charlie Alpha Tango, that spells a word, and Delta Oscar Golf spells a word. In order to do it, all you have to do is look at the first letter. So for Charlie, you would write a C. For Alpha, you would write an A. And for Tango, you would write the T, C-A-T, cat. And for Delta Oscar Golf, what would you write? Let me know in the comments or shout at the screen. So Charlie Alpha Tango is cat. What's Delta Oscar Golf? Dog. So I've just told you cat and dog using the NATO phonetic alphabet. Did you get those right? Does that make a little bit of sense? So just look at those first letters. Why is spelling the words beneficial to armed forces? So I've given you some things here to look at to help explain it. Why do you think? Why would this be something the armed forces like to use? And it's not just armed forces. It's also been used for rescue services. So firefighters, police officers, all of those will sometimes use it as well. Why is it important? Well, if you're using something like a walkie-talkie, these do not transmit very well, right? So there's some areas where you might not be able to use your phones due to signal problems, but these would still work between different groups. And when you use these, though, it can get mumbled and jumbled, and there can be a lot of static, right? So it'd be important that you can still understand one another, especially if you're in the armed forces and it's a combat type of situation. So it was designed to be intelligible and pronounceable for all members of NATO. So no matter what country we're from, we should be able to pronounce and say these words so that other people can understand us. So whether it's using walkie-talkies, that's an old school radio at the top, or whether it is armed forces on mobile phones, but in very noisy and loud conditions, you'd still be able to use it to understand one another because you can spell it out, and those words will mean a letter. It's speaking in code, kind of. What are some scenarios where they might use it? So I have some pictures here to help you think. When can you think of a situation where this would be really, really helpful for troops? So I have 4 here to help you. Go to the next slide to explain them a little bit. So radio communication and joint operations. So sometimes when there's a bunch of different forces coming together to work on something, like from different NATO countries coming together in some way, whether it's training or a real life situation, they can use the phonetic alphabet to communicate call signs or grid references, operational instructions over a radio. So a British Army unit coordinating with an Allied air support might need to call out target locations. Target at grid reference, November, Golf, Papa. And then that would avoid any misinterpretations, especially if it's something important like a target. Then towards the bottom, we have the ground to air communications. That would be important. So again, for coordination of targets, you can talk to the pilot in a specific location or relay information like danger close, and then confirm target coordinations like Lima, Oscar, November, Gulf. So accuracy is really, really important. But if somebody's on the ground versus in the air, you can still communicate so that you can understand one another. The maritime, the Royal Navy also uses these things. They're going to use it for shore-based commands and for those that are out on ships. They might use it for international call signs or specific commands. For example, telling an unidentified vessel to state your name and spell it out so that you know if somebody is a target or not. And then logistics and reporting is the last one I have there. So a supply sergeant who's making sure that the Army has everything that they possibly need will be able to call for specific part numbers using this. So it's just another way of communicating to make sure that if you need something specific and you need it to be reliable and you don't want anyone to mess up, then you use the NATO alphabet. Let's practice. Do you have your pen and paper? Is someone going to get it for you? I'm going to spell out some words, meaning I'm going to say the phonetic alphabet, and you just write down the letters I'm meaning. So for instance, if I were to say alpha, you write down A. A is for alpha, right? Okay, that's not the first start for. Are you ready? I'm going to start now. The first word, Gulf. Actually, I'll pretend. I'm going to do this. So I'm on here. I'm on my walkie-talkie. You listen in on your end. So I've started with Golf, Oscar. That's the first word. Golf, Oscar. Okay, the second word. You ready? Hotel, Alpha, Victor, Echo. The second word again is hotel, Alpha, Victor, Echo. Okay, now we're on to the third word. Are you ready? Foxtrot, uniform, November. The third word again is Foxtrot, uniform, November. And then our last word. Okay, here we go. Last word. Tango, Oscar, Delta, Alpha, Yankee. One more time. The last word is Tango, Oscar, Delta, Alpha, Yankee. Do you have all of those? So you didn't need to write all the word down. You just needed to write the letter it represented. So here's what it should say if you've done it right. Did you translate it correctly? Golf Oscar is go. Hotel Alpha Victor Echo is have. Foxtrot Uniform November is fun. And Tango Oscar Delta Alpha Yankee is today. Go have fun today. Your challenges for today, everyone, are to learn some of the code words from the NATO phonetic alphabet. So if I were to say B, you would say Bravo. If I were to say F, you would say Foxtrot. If I were to say U, you would say uniform. Can you describe why it's used? Can you explain 2 scenarios where it might be used? And can you write your own words? So choose some words and spell them out. So if you chose dog, what would you write? Delta, Oscar, Golf, dog. So write them out. Extended learning opportunity here is for you actually to use a set of walkie-talkies. Get your walkie-talkies out and try and communicate using the NATO phonetic alphabet. Send a parent or somebody to another room or a friend and use the phonetic alphabet and send each other codes and see how well it works. You could also do this with mobile phones in noisy environments to see if you can still understand each other. Okay, so those are your learning outcomes for today. If you can do those challenges for me and get the unit set in, I would appreciate it. I hope you guys have a lovely day today, and I will see you again soon. Bye.